Thokozani, thank you very much for joining us. Today, we are going to have Gogo Khanyakude. The topic that we're speaking on under the Ukuthwasa module is liDloti lasekhaya. So I'm going to invite Gogo Khanyakude on.
Outing and take it from sonke siyafundzisa and isifundzisa from, we can say, the way I was socialized or I was taught embanzini yami, because kunalabathwasile bangoma that are on this platform. But njengoba sikhuluma ngekuthwasa, we are talking about those that actually abadi. So to begin this conversation, ngicela ukuthi wonke umuntu akhiphe ingqondo yokuthi ngingitsibinki or ngingisiyazi or whatever it is, just ube empty ngoba sikhuluma ngekuthwasa, and masivisisa kuthwasa is coming to completion. And then nyalo siqala sihloko semadloti asekhaya, and in order for us to come to completion yalento le idzinga ukuthi siqale si-empty siyakhe lelwati. So lo mkushogo is not to take away from certain understandings that where it may contradict with the way certain people understand liDloti lasekhaya. Ngoba kubalulekile ukuthi sivisise ukuthi simple is something that is holistic. It's not linear or bilinear, where it's either or. Simple is inclusive, holistic. Umuntu ngabantu, so it means both and. It's not one that invalidates. So when it comes to education, it's an inclusive model that there'll be certain understandings. Njengoba Khedla aliqalile mkhulu Madloti ukuthi amdloti lasekhaya mawusangoma can be those who you are related to you of blood, and they come and give a gift to you. That is a valid understanding of ukuthi yini liDloti lasekhaya. Liqiniso lelo ngoba mase sibuka, it's on an intimate level, njengawe wena lohambako loya kuthwasa laphayana ukuthi what then madloti asekhaya akunika kona. Mara uma siqala ngalesihloko semadloti asekhaya, I'd like for us to start at the beginning in understanding what is liDloti lasekhaya for thine sonke, because we all come from a home. Likhaya is a home. So when sikhuluma ngemadloti asekhaya, we are speaking about all of those who are related to us by blood, who shared a communal living space with us along a familial bloodline. Kusho ukuthi bonke bakithi lekuthi bake bahlala ndzawonye bayakhelana, bahlobelana, bakhe umndeni. Niyakuvisisa? Because now this thing, when we're looking at it, we're looking at...
Please speak more English, Khedla.
So when we are looking into liDloti lasekhaya, we are speaking about your blood ancestors, but your blood ancestors that had an intimate relationship in that they actually lived with the people in your familial bloodline, because we can be related to 1,000 people and share the same DNA, but we could never have had a shared point of contact as a lived experience. So when we're speaking about the principle of what defines liDloti lasekhaya, it is very important to understand it's those ancestors that actually interacted with your ancestors on a bloodline. So it could be like, as you were saying, your grandmother, your father, your great-grandmother, your great-grandfather, their siblings, the families they married into, those people that actually interacted in part of your heritage and inheritance. So that becomes part of your familial inheritance, your familial legacy, the stories and the experiences of all the people that have shaped your bloodline to the point where sekuvela wena, where you come into existence as the gift bearer. So masivisisa njalo, and we understand it like that, liDloti lasekhaya, it means that everyone carries liDloti lasekhaya, because the moment your father passes away, they become liDloti lasekhaya to all of those that recognized him as a brother, all of those that recognized him as a child, all of those that recognized him as a father, all of those that recognized him as a cousin, all of those that recognized him along the familial descriptions of relation. And this is very, very important for us to note as to that it means liDloti lasekhaya are actually a larger amount of ancestry that we carry vis-a-vis our gift bearers, since it's Ukuthwasa. So it means in your family, if you go into Twasa and your parents are deceased, those madlotako already, whether you're going to initiate in them or not, but they are part of madlotako asekhaya. And if we are taking it from, we'll use the example today of have ungabi namage nababi, not having a father and a mother, or your grandmother or your grandfather. Those close nuclear relationships will be what we'll use when I use examples. So to start, you go to Twasa and your parents are deceased. So your gift bearer could be your great 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 grandfather. But in your living sense now, you would have needed for your father and your mother to be involved in ritual yakho yemvuma kufa, to be able to pasha for you, because they are your primordial ancestors, they are your gift, your life bearers, they're the ones that have brought you here. So when you go Twasa, you involve them, and if they were living ancestors, they would have gotten involved in your process, and unless there were issues, much similar to the same way as when anahlangana nemndeni ekhaya kwabe sekuyaphahliwa. So now the question becomes, if you're going to go Twasa and you do not have both your parents or your grandparents who could pasha for you as part of imvuma kufa yakho, as part of indlela yakho yokuya eTwaseni, how then do you get lawo madloda asekhaya to still do that role? Because this need still remains of ukuthi uphahlelwe wena ukuthi uhambe ekhaya. But these ancestors now are no longer living, but they are still ancestors that are there in another point. So I'm trying to introduce the role of liDloti lasekhaya. The role of liDloti lasekhaya is for them to pasha in the spaces within which, when the people were living, that is what they would have facilitated. So uma seswakho, the firstborn daughter, ufubuye emangunini, umafungwase wangakini ashonile, and they're no longer a living ancestor, and there's certain ritual work that requires for umafungwase ukuthi aphahle, to be the one who entreaties the spiritual world, then you will then need to be able to then establish a relationship with them when they are now in the ancestral realm. That is the ideation that we need to have when it comes to what role liDloti Ukuthwasa play to a person who is going to, asekhaya play for umuntu lo liDloti lekufuneka ukuthi ahambe aye koThwasa.
So Goza, that is beautiful. You actually have, I think the question that I asked in lesson 2 about what then happens to people who have family, living family, who are still in this realm, are not supportive of the process. And you've just answered that question perfectly, because it is for the Twasa process, you need to have family to be able to hand you over and to be able to actually kukuvulela indlela, so that your initiation is it goes well. We need that. That is actually a requirement. So this is what you have just explained perfectly explains what actually happened. That is not liDloti, is not, and the teacher that we had on the day was Nkuluman Zolwane. He explained that he did touch on the fact that your ancestors are not just your family is not just the living, also the past on, also your family. Though you people who already passed on still qualify as family, and bayakhona ukukuvulela indlela for you to be able to start your process of initiation. So you do actually have support, even if it may be people that have passed on supporting you, even if you do not have the family, the living family supporting you or helping you.
And it's very important, uma sikhuluma ngemadloda asekhaya, your blood ancestors, because often in our spiritual journeying, we become so obsessed with the dead. But there are certain aspects where, when we're speaking about liDloti lasekhaya, your blood ancestors, we are speaking about the living people those that are alive. Much in the same way as I'm describing that along all of our different backgrounds, cultural backgrounds, because I wouldn't say tribes and clans, because those are constructs. Our cultural backgrounds, you'll find eSungunini, there's certain traditional roles. Umsamo indlu kagogo, uyavisisa. And if gogo wakho is still alive and you have a calling, and they're saying ukuthi funeke uhambe uyovusa indlu kagogo, you need to go, and then when I be the one that reawakens or realigns your grandmother's spiritual home. They're not speaking about somebody that's dead. They're speaking about your living grandmother, because she is alive, and the Lomsamo, she is the custodian of it, and therefore it is a call together. If you and your living grandmother are not in good relation, the healing, Lungisa walo yomsamo, is healing that relationship, because we often escape away from the human aspect of ancestry. Because maDloti, when they come to us, they're not here to give you a certain kind of power to validate you and vilify you from all of your suffering and all of the loneliness that the calling carries. They're actually here, they're here to unite. That's why when we partner, we put both our hands together, so when they return to the family, they are not just here to heal the issues of the dead only. They are here to heal the issues primarily of the living, because the issues of the living are an intergenerational inheritance that we inherit from the collective conscious, which is Lomoya, the spirit wemadloti of the ancestors that we inherit, and then that call us. They call us to be able to fix their traumas, their past that now affect us as a living people, that separate us as a family along ideology lines, where some people will be Christians, others will be atheists, others will be capitalists, and others will be spiritualists, but yet you all come from the same direct bloodline.
So goes that. It's I don't know how I'm going to ask this one. You just said it comes to here. I want to speak about, maybe you could also touch on the turmoil that actually happens before in a whole lot of families, how that happens, what the cause of it is. It's a differing ideologies, yes, but there's normally a lot of turmoil that leads to, or that happens before the gifted child in the family goes to Twasa. And it also, we're speaking about the healing of not only the ancestors' traumas, but also of the family's traumas. That is also not a magical situation that we actually, as a Twasa healer, you still have to keep working with your people. And maybe just explain that, please, Gogo.
Turmoil,
yeah.
Sometimes it becomes very interesting to use certain English words to narrate an African experience. Turmoil. I'm trying to find any African word that can describe turmoil, and the closest I can come to is kuhlangahlangana. Yabo into tihlangene. And when you translate it literally, things are mixed up or mixing together or coming mixed together. But that reveals a certain sort of a process and something that you're going through. So turmoil in our African experience, is a necessary condition of the spiritual journey. If our status quo, our state of reality was always the same, whenever there was any kind of shift of consciousness, of understanding, of action, or whatever shift needs to happen, we wouldn't recognize that there is a call to actually shift. There's something that is saying, hey, move from this place. So we can take it from the place of understanding, the disturbance is a call to pay attention to something that needs for us to be doing something. And often the turmoil takes the shape and form of whatever it is necessary that you pay attention to. So if in your family before we are Ukuthwasa, you guys had thought that, listen, we're so closely knit, we are so great, we love each other, the turmoil will come when tozondana ningasakhulumisani, because it's about revealing the deeper truths that these relations are founded upon pretenses, and now that spirit are now coming to bring this energy not just to you who is called, but to everyone, because emadloti etu songe, we are all, when a calling comes, it's a calling to initiate for the whole bloodline. So when that seeing energy comes in with you, who has been the one who's the gatekeeper, who's opened it, you receive revelations as a family who see, oh no, all of this is quite pretentious and it's quite bogus, and then factions begin. And then people will say, Lendo yemadloti iyahlukanisana, that these ancestral things come and then they to bring us apart. But it's because they heighten our awareness, they heighten our sensitivities, they heighten our understandings. There's a deepening whenever a calling comes into a home, where we now are able to introspect and reflect more on the things which we often have suppressed from our families.
Togoza, Togoza, that's well explained. Thank you very much. I'm also learning. I keep saying that I learn all the time. Each time we have a lesson, I am learning. I would also please speak on something that always comes up, masikhuluma nge-Ukuthwasa, and specifically ngemadlozi asekhaya, the process of kuvuma kufa. Could you please explain kuvuma kufa or imvuma kufa, and what it actually is and what it means?
There's a whole lot of imbikiswano about, which is a debate around what is imvuma kufa. And as I said in the beginning, I made it very clear that I'm teaching from my own experiences. And when I say I'm teaching from my own experiences, it's not Khanyakude, Mabuza, and Tisetso as Joanna and sister. It means it's from Imbanzi Yasekhaya, where I initiated an understanding from Mthetho Shoba, a communal understanding from the sect, from the fraternity, which is bound upon communal knowledge, because all indigenous knowledge is communal knowledge. Isinvu is something that is a convention. You can find the principles that guide, that find it, the ethics, the signs and the symbolisms and the deeper meanings in our rituals and our actions are all aligned. They don't clash in our Bantu cosmology. So my understanding and my interpretation is in understanding that as a Bantu people, there's a specific group Tangoma that then initiate. And as Tangoma, there's a many sects within the Sangoma range, because the Sangoma means a person who comes to the process of initiation by using sound as their healing modality. So mina ngikhuluma ngalala bathwasa singuni labakhalela kufa kwabo labayatwelanga lokufa. When we are speaking about imvuma kufa, we are speaking about it straightly, purely from you're going to initiate in a sect where uyiphuza uyiphalaza khona, or whether ufa uphinze uvuke khona. Those are the sects of initiation. Impanzi ledzabuka la eMpumalanga, lenye idzabuka eShayishayi. If you look at historically then into the sect of knowledge and the body of work where I'm calling upon the understanding of imvuma kufa.
So, and I'm going to speak also on the process that I had to go through with you. It just helped me understand liDloti lasekhaya, because you actually helped me on that journey, or in that part of my journey. And we did a lot of trips. We did a lot of trips. I know I would come to your place almost dying, to come to your Ndumba almost dying from just manifestation, and it would not just be spiritual, it became physical. So that is how I would get to you. And in healing that, in trying to get me to understand, and in healing that, we had to do a whole lot of trips back into just my lineage, where I was coming from, where my people are coming from. that process helped me understand who my people were. It also helped me to understand that before I got to a person, I knew exactly who my ancestors were, because then it forced me to go back and ask from my grandmothers, the grandmothers that are still living within the family, who would have been married to Bomkulu, or who were married, who are daughters-in-law of of my great grandfather, for instance. I had to go back and ask my uncles, because my dad had already passed on. I had to try also to understand the journeys that of my aunt, who had also that passed on, who would have been very instrumental in helping me understand. I had never met my paternal grandmother, and that's also, had to take the time to also find out who she was, what she liked, and also to learn about her people. It was and the thing is, we a lot of the time we think that when the people are gone, we will not know. There's no ways of knowing or getting that information. But when you start on the journey, it actually, you get the assistance that you need, because spirit does reveal things, and it also puts together things so that in such a way that you actually do get the information that you need. Uh, I'm just recounting that. I don't know how you're going to put that in your lessons.
So what's a Gogo? What's beautiful is you've just answered what Imvumagufa is. Because from the mainstream conversation that we've all been engaging in on social media, is we speaking about Imvumagufa as a ritual, a certain ritual where you slaughter for your ancestors, that you accept your calling, and that you are willing to then let go of your life so they can take possession. And you're agreeing that you can go Twasa, which is a rebirth. That's why your day of Twasa, Saturday, Langa Lokufa. So the argument is whether that is supposed to be done at a Nyanga's home or at your home. But that conversation, both of it is incorrect, because imvumagufa, when we understand it from I am agreeing to die, I am decent, so I find out today I am called, I have these ancestors, my life needs to stop. I need to firstly find out who the hell are these ancestors? Where do they come from? How did it come about that it's me? How does it affect me in how I'm going, in what's going on in my space? And all of that needs for me to do what? To firstly introspect and look at my life from, okay, how has those who I'm related to impacted me, by first finding out who is it that I walk with, or who is the first point of contact. You speak in your story about how you came being sick, and that was liDloti lasekhaya. You, as I spoke about, if your parents have passed away, they are your primordial, your birthing ancestor. Your father was the first ancestor that afflicted you to show and opened up the way. So if you hadn't paused your life and gone into doing all of the things you've described, that illness would have still carried on. But after you had successfully then found out all of that knowledge, so that you could sufficiently bring your family together to kusinende the ritual, then act of kuhlaba lenkomo nalembuti nalomsebenzi laphayana, kuthi say you are officiating it, not doing imvumagufa. Imvumagufa is not a ritual. Imvumagufa is a practice that you practice over time. It is where you learn to understand sinvusagini, your cultures and your customs, understanding your history and your backgrounds on a familial bloodline, understanding what traumas and what things existed in the past generations from your parents, your grandparents, that affect the way in which you guys relate now as a family, both within the family structure, but also in the world, in terms of work, in terms of relationships, things that we then describe as generational curses, which Ukuthwasa is said to then heal. And this cannot be done by the offering of the biggest cow and the slaughtering of the purest, whitest goat and chicken, saying, Vumi, level Gogo, it's great. No, because then we don't understand the essence of that. When Vumagufa in the beginning, the first role you accept is that I am now going to be the historian. I am going to be the archive. I am going to be the library that is going to house all of our familial history from as far back as my parents, going all the way back, which is why when you go into Twasa, if you need to gajegwa, the ancestors must come out. And when they come out, they must say, I am, for example, meaning Twase, Gogo Khanyakude. Gogo Khanyakude is my great-grandmother's mother, but liDloti la la my great-grandmother's mother. Yena bekanglankuna leso salukwati leso, to get to the point where I could then become Gogo Khanyakude and receive the gift bearer. I first had to go through the process of working and healing the trauma yalankuna nabani na my great-grandmother and how it affected the familial bloodline based on the context. And that happened both before Msaqala Yekthwaseni, during Yekthwaseni, and it's still a continual procedure, because even though I can say Gogo Khanyakude, I am working with my gift bearer, akasengangiphanga sonke isikhwama sakhe ngoba angisengacedzanga all of the work that I still need to do in healing the generation. And that is what Imvuma Kufa is. It's signing the contract that you will pick up all of the collective traumas that your family share as a collective consciousness that affects where you guys are, both in terms of self, in terms of family, in terms of community, and across then all aspects of living on a socio-economical level, on a political level, on all of those things that our blood and our DNA inherits us or actually curses us with.
Because I cases they inherit us, but curse us with as well, because wow, it is a lot, Gogo. And you mentioned something, Yoguti. Now, like speaking of healing the trauma, of your ancestors, because you will get when you start on the process, you get to understand and you will get to know what it is that you need to fix, or what they need fixed, that they would like, besides you just being taking on the healing gift, the things that you need to do to heal the family and to heal their trauma. It's a whole lot. And you just mentioned that you actually have not finished healing that trauma, because they will put out there the things that you need to do, and sometimes it's not like you have the ability to do those things. Some things also are so big. It will be things that hambisana neglobola, ukuthi bani akalobolanga akachazanga globola bani, kunebantwana in the process, that children who need to be hlawulwa, and then it becomes your responsibility. So how can you explain how, if you know, how they are able to assist you to actually get those things done, and that if you now pass on as well and those things have not been done, how then does it happen? Do they fall onto your children, or do they fall onto the next person that receives the gift in the home?
So in our languages use a lot of proverbs. There's an African proverb that says that a date doesn't expire. So what you're doing, speak of lobola, birthing rituals, you're speaking about rites of passage and of initiation, which help us to transition and cement us in who we are supposed to be in ourselves and on familiar lines. So those rites of passage are often the things that Sine and those ceremonies that we focus upon healing. If my father had not hlawulat for my birth, which is acknowledge the fact that he had made a child with my mother out of wedlock, then it falls upon me as his son to then do that for my mom. And if I don't do that, that means that I would not have healed the intergenerational trauma. That is not a trauma. That is the debt. That has to be done. That is very easy to do. That my mom, you can get mabasi ingomo. You can do it with 10 rands, because it's about intention, setting an intention, setting a ritual, and then going through with it. And however both parties that are involved from the maternal and paternal can agree on the conditions set, that is fine. But if during that time, because Babwa Magazange wahlawula, my mom then was then excommunicated from her family, and she had to then, her whole life was changed because of my father's actions, and that has affected my whole bloodline. Then the trauma is not ukuthi angahlawulwa, it's the actions that have happened. And if because of that, my mother was never able to then remarry, because we understand the fact that in our African families and cultures, that once a woman has a child out of wedlock, it's very often to then find another man who will want to marry you. So then you find that that's your mother's biggest trauma, and your father has passed away. And then you are now a generation of girls who are not getting married. And it's because your mother's still carrying the trauma of her not being able to get married because your father azange wamhlawula, and then he walked out on her. So what you need to heal is that. In doing the ritual, you can do lensebedi and everything, but the status quo still remains. And then you'll say atisebendi liDloti, because you don't understand what we mean about trauma in the real essence. Trauma is the experience, not the ritual.
So, of course, you explained that very, very well, actually. Thank you. Did you understand that? We have a whole class here, so I have students that you are not seeing, but we are all here listening. You spoke of rite of passage, and that is actually very easy to do because it's done through symbolism. You said you can have you can go buy a coat, buy a stick, buy a hat, and go lobola to your grandfather or your grandmother who was lobola to. So that seems very easy. So the challenge is the trauma, is the healing of that trauma. Does the healing of the trauma, would it entail me then, me as the person, does it then, because those, would it entail my healing? I'm trying to understand how how that trauma is actually healed. Is it very linked to how I am healed of the trauma that I will have experienced as well?
So let's go back to Mvumagufa. So the Mvumagufa is an acceptance that I will heal all of the intergenerational inheritances and the legacies of the past. So you have done the ritual, like we're saying in context of the mother and the father. You've done the ritual, you've done the lobola, you've bought the coat, and now but then nothing has changed. Your plot as the one loyendele mvumagufa is because you are the library, you are the archive, so vumile. If then the ritual doesn't bring any change, that is when you have to call upon your father and say, hey dude, I did this, I sorted it out, but hey, look, still it's a year later, none of us, we're still being dribbled by these men. Why is this happening? Then yena, he must come through whatever's your ancestral communication channel and say to you, lalela mvanam, kulmana magwako, and tell her to forgive because of me not having done this. She was never then able to be married, and these are the experiences that she's gone through. Give you an example of how in church she'd be excluded, and perhaps your mom is umamum tandazo because she's an unmarried woman, and how in society she was always excluded because of that, and she's a people's person, how she's lived a half life, and because of that she doesn't wish you guys well. And then you say to her, babe uyacela ukuthi uyaxolisa, lungisa. And that is how you then do not become a library by saying, I can go around asking, hey, what happened in the past? But that I can tap into myself by doing the right rites of passage or ceremonies, that then when there is no change that manifests, I can speak to the ancestor that is connected to that conscious memory of it to give me then what is the blockage. And if it is a piece of information that there's no way I could know, like what has happened to my mom intimately because of this, and I offer it, then that is the transformative power of imvuma kufa. It allows for you to always have the ability to kill that which will not allow for transformation and healing in your line if you align with it.
So good. Very, very well explained. Everybody here is like, So, when we speak about also, let's speak also of because this journey involves different it involves a whole there's a dress code, for instance, a different dress code, different dances, different songs, and uh, the general. A lot of people also will know the general Guni songs. They may know Ndau songs. I'm just speaking about the city initiation, that what people actually go through and what people actually experience of initiation, and without really tapping into liDloti lasekhaya and what it actually entails, their songs and the songs that they prefer, their dress code and why they dressed that way, and also there's also different pillars. We are also bringing in what is now called isithunywa, which is the Christianity aspect of it. Uh, please speak on that, Gogo. How you can actually share and educate people on emabai, the dress code, and the importance of that.
Do you know what I liked is when you began it with the song, Sidangoma. And as I said, I may not be here to invalidate anybody else's knowledge and everybody else's lived experience. But what we need to understand is that if we speak about Isinvu, it's our ancestors learned from divine absolute truths. They observed nature and they understood water as a living entity. And because it is a living entity, it carries all memories of all time and it is a creational force. It is what is charged with the creation of everything in life. And that's why we speak of Mandoti living where elwandle lebangoma, so that we call upon the alchemic power of water and the creational in storing our ancestors who are gift bearers as Dangoma living where elwandle lebangoma. There's no mbanzele engafika ikutshele ukuthi that is a lie. Water is not a creational force. Water is not emadlozi akahlali elwandle lebangoma. So there are absolute truths that touch upon those things. Masikhuluma ngeDloti and then nangemthetho elishoba. So when we go into a lot of what is happening now in this popular Ngoma space, I really think it is too uniform. And in the uniformity, you go and you have to subscribe to a certain way of doing things as though you're learning at a set mpanze, and they uphuma kuleyo mpanze leyo, and then after that they like, don't worry, but when you get home, your ancestors will show you how to set up your mpanze. So we have all of these people who have taken the knowledge from the same place, but when they go and practice and they come together as a fraternity, the principles that govern their spirituality intersect, because elami los liti, elami los liti, elami los liti. But as you said, everybody dresses the same though. Everybody uses impepo. We all have mnguni mdawe thunya. There's such obvious uniformity, but in our personal expression, we claim such difference. And it's because there's a shallowing around umsebenzi lesiwendako ngemadlozi asekhaya. In all of my twasas, meaning I always explain to them that I love my ancestors because even from the simplest thing of songs, every single one of my ancestors has theme songs, songs that I know if they say you went into trance, and when you went into trance, the song that was sang was Lapho Mkhanya Khona Khanyakude. I know, oh, Gogo Khanyakude in the building. Hi, what's up? You know, if they say I went into trance and then the ancestors were singing Mbuya kamaseko, hi, my babu kamaseko, mbuya. I know exactly immediately. They say, bekuphume gogo athi kuthwasa kubuhlungu ekhaya kwale nyangeni wo hayi umakama ngomane. I know ukuthi hayi bekuphumela ngomane nyalo uyakuvisisa makuphuma bebesuthu bathi dikgoshi ekolo tsa mapolane ngrale dumedi shaye. I know it's the royal lineage from my Pulana family, and I know it can either be this family or this family. So through song, through my ancestors having songs that we can share, because if you like the song, it's not, I don't own the intellectual property or the copyrights of it. You can sing it as a song that helps you to vibrate at a certain spiritual level, because the sound and the songs and the rhythmic patterns of how they are constructed are part of our healing. They vibrate within us in a different way that's able to evoke spirit from us. But from an intimate level, it's then for me a source of identity. I understand my ancestors communicate through music so much. And even in my teachings, I always teach Butsi, your ancestors, we must know from the moment the first song what is going on or who your ancestor is. If your ancestors have said, can they sing a song that describes the emotional state where they at? And if the song can narrate and set the context as to where it is, please, you understand. And if your ancestors don't have that, then it becomes quite difficult, because what we need to realize is we all think, oh no, Gogo's special because yena madoda kaneti ngoma. But just 58 years ago, there was no TV, there was no iTunes. Our ancestors made music. So even if they didn't have a song that was built around their name, there was a song that they loved, that they sang themselves, and they made the music themselves, especially when we start going back into your 3 generations ago, because that's what the drum was for. Every home had a drum. So now you don't have those songs. So even when your family members come through and you go into trance, your ancestors are singing ingoma ya Gobela wako, because Gobela wako is like, this is the Josie song. But your ancestor wants to come out to sing a silly song that your great grandmother will be able to be like, oh my word, Lena Begwingoma ya my great grandfather. They will become your testament to the fact that here's your blue tick verified, this calling is real. When we go into then amabai, it's you'll get taught that ibai elinje elumdawe. Like for example, we associate this by with mzawe, and it'll be generic, the understanding of it. But what if for me I am vendor? I don't have to go initiate under Ioi and Chikameja. I have to go Ana Marombo. The vendor people, whether as a cultural regalia, all of them were injeti nelpalo. That's just their cultural dress outside of the initiation Sangoma sect. So you see how then that uniform understanding of ibaileli shokuthi unemdawe can mislead somebody else when it's saying go and find somebody like Maine Makazi who comes from this lineage. You keep on dreaming of this here, and you're so convinced because you're online, you're hearing all of these things, and you're like, I am the one meaning Nimzau.
Togoza. It is actually very misleading, because now what we are finding is everybody's wearing mabais and wearing beads, and they have different stories, which is also good that they actually made. Some have a story as to why they are wearing that. Some people don't. They just do as they are told, do as they see others do.
And one thing I want to be honest about all of these tools of connections from amabai, ama beads, and all of these things we buy and we say, my lozi, my lozi, my lozi. Our ancestors lived under apartheid, access to resources. Most of our ancestors were poor. Your ancestors had 10,000 mabai, like people will have 12 different bais from their gogo. Haibo, those bais, some of these prints are new, but yet you are saying it was my great grandmother's print. Because the prints that were there, in all honesty, if you study, if you look at the Ngoma anthropology, was the sun, the snake, the lion, the leopard, and then Leemahau, the one that represents Bukosi, dependent on which part it came from, and then the Micheka and the Paro. All of these other ones are new. And this is a historic fact. And then you get someone coming to you and said, I dreamt of this bai, my great grandmother had it, and you're like, hi, oh,
my great grandmother gave me this bai in my dreams. Mm-hmm.
How?
Let's speak on totems, Gogo. Let's speak on the importance of totems before we have. I think we have 5 minutes left. Just briefly on totems.
So when we speak on totems in terms of liDloti, lasekhaya, every single person, if in your tagazelo, somehow in your history, there's a certain animal or an association with an animal, totemism, it means that, guess what? Surprise, congratulations, you are Kalanga. Because as a Bantu people, we all came from the Kalanga kingdom. And here in Southern Africa, which had a very, 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 very many diverse cultures within it. And each of them belonged and associated with a certain animal. And that animal totem is what connects you to the natural world. Firstly, for example, na if Ukuthwasa malopo re ana malopos, so we will say umutlo, umutau, uminanuku, uminalikhaka. All of those things are different animals that are described. So the importance of the totem, when you have an animal totem, it's like clink, 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 clink. You're trying to connect with your ancestor. You need a physical tool of connection. If your animal totem is a lion, get a lion bai, get a picture of a lion, even play the sounds of lions, because that invites the energy of the representation of it. If then you're going into where would I have to pasha, look and Google as to the typical places where lions roam and reside, because that is where your ancestors of that animal totem will reside, not where I, Gogo Khanyakude, will say, go and pasha emanzini. Yeah, I understand. Importance of totems, that in understanding the animal totem in its behaviors, in what it represents from a spiritual perspective, from its contribution in the ecosystem to just its interaction with the living world and even with people, if they have interactions with people, it gives you an understanding of who your people are and the principalities that they carry and the energies that they carry and you can call upon.
Togoza. Yeah, it's a pity that our time is finished, but thank you very much. You actually have touched on so much. This lesson is going to be available on YouTube by Tuesday. And on there, we will have a link on how you will get hold of, we can get hold of Gogo Khanyakude for those who would like to get more knowledge and want to contact Gogo Khanyakude. So on Tuesday evening, we premiere at 8:30 on Tuesday night, yes. On Monday, we'll premiere on Monday at 8:30 p.m. So go on there, you'll be able to go through this lesson, revisit it, make notes, and be able to get hold of details on how to contact Gogo Khanyakude for further explanation and elaboration on things that may impact you personally. Thank you so much, Gogo. Thank you so much. We are a big love, and we actually do miss you. Togoza Kesha, thank you for coming through. I know today we were late. I'm told that the people were actually asking from 12 o'clock, is there no school today? Is there no school today?
Oh,
wow. So thank you. Yeah, because we normally it's at 12, but I had to be running around and doing things today. So thank you so much for making yourself available for us and to all the viewers and the people that are actually learning from this platform. There's so much work that still needs to be done in this space, not just from just people looking, still needing to initiate, but it's also to help that when people actually do initiate, they actually know what they're getting themselves into. They actually know what the process is about. So you don't need to initiate if you don't need to initiate. And it's also not, it's not a thing that you do just because you want to wear the bias. If you want to wear the bias, go ahead and wear the bias. If you want to wear beads, wear the beads. You don't need to go and initiate, go through a whole process just to actually be able to do this. So and sit there and not be a healer and not heal and just look pretty. So because this is really not what it's about. So keep coming on. Next week Saturday we will be here again. On the final lesson, lesson 7, or final lesson of this module of Ukuthwasa, and we will be speaking on the actual Ndwaso itself. Thokoza Kesh.
It was such a pleasure being with you guys. And I think as a final thing to go back into Mvumagufa. Mvumagufa, guys, is a new age response, and a response to decolonizing our minds, our spirits, and our bodies. It's a learning of Isin Vusagini because of the oppression that we went through, because of the Witchcraft Suppression Act and the strictures on freedom of movement. It wasn't something that was always practiced immemorially. So when we understand Imvumagufa, it's saying go back and understand who you are, how you lived, where they came from. Do not be misled into going through your calling, thinking rituals and rites of passage and ceremonies are like the flash of a shoba and everything is going to be okay. Because this thing is about knowing who's Bani. It's about being a whole country, a whole nation, a whole library within yourself, a whole universe, the divine.
Because our history was disrupted so rudely by colonization, and so we are really coming into ourselves. And I will actually like for us at some point to speak on Gudloza, because I think that is what we're also touching on Gudloza and Bugoma, because it's that is the one thing that people are proud of, are coming into a place where they are proud of themselves, proud of their identity, so that they are able to actually understand what Gudloza, the difference between Gudloza and Bungoma is, and that you can actually be the one and actually leave the one and be and make your ancestors proud in just being practicing the same way that they practice spirituality. Togoza Kesh.
So we definitely will have that conversation.